All right, the I'm not a geopolitical strategist, but I play one on this mic. Welcome back. If you spent your morning debating the merits of a multipolar world order while your smart fridge was judging your choice of leftovers, congratulations, you are exactly where you need to be. I'm your host, Maple, and today we're diving into a topic that's essentially the geopolitical version of a he said, she said argument, but with nuclear deterrence and, much better cheese. We're talking about Robert Kagan's theory on the US-Europe rift. Why? Because while the rest of the world is obsessed with whatever AI-generated pop star is trending today, we're here to ask, are Americans really just the angry bouncers of the global nightclub? Let's get into the messy divorce of the West.
So, to get to the bottom of this, Kagan gives us this incredibly powerful and, pretty provocative metaphor. It's this idea of a beautiful, perfectly manicured garden that happens to exist right next to a dark and very, very dangerous jungle.
So here's part one of the idea. Kagan's whole vibe is that Europe has entered this postmodern paradise. They are truly living the dream, completely focused on international law, diplomacy, and 35-hour work weeks. It's this beautiful garden where everybody agrees that, words are better than swords.
And here it is, the other shoe drops. Kagan argues they only get to live in that garden because Uncle Sam is standing at the gate with a tactical vest and a very, very expensive drone. This whole paradise only exists because America is willing to stand guard, dealing with all the threats out there in the real world. The rogue states, the terrorists, the autocrats who, let's be honest, don't really care about the garden's rules.
So what you have is this deep, fundamental split in how they see the world. As you can see here, Europe is operating from what Kagan calls a Kantian perspective. They believe in a permanent peace that you can achieve through reason and law. Meanwhile, America is stuck in the gritty, Hobbesian world, the dark alleys of history, where might makes right and security depends on pure strength. It's the whole Americans are from Mars, Europeans are from Venus thing. They aren't just disagreeing on policy, they're living in two completely different realities.
So, you have to ask, how did this even happen? Did Europe just have some great moral awakening while America got left behind? Well, Kagan says not so fast. The answer isn't in philosophy, it's in the cold, hard facts of what happened after World War II.
Kagan's theory really boils down to two key things. First, World War II absolutely shattered Europe. Its great powers were exhausted, and they basically lost the ability and the will to play the global power game anymore. And second, the US didn't pack up and go home this time. It stayed, and through NATO, it provided this massive security umbrella that completely changed the calculus for everyone.
And this is a point that is so easy to forget. For hundreds of years, the engine of conflict in Europe was the rivalry between France and Germany. Well, the presence of American troops, the new sheriff in town, solved that problem. With the US acting as the ultimate guarantor of security, France didn't have to fear Germany, and Germany didn't have to fear France. That trust, that security, was the absolute bedrock that the entire European Union was built on.
Now, Kagan uses a very sharp term to describe this whole relationship. He calls Europe's postmodern world a parasitic system. And that's blunt. But he's basically saying that Europe's peace, its prosperity, even its high-minded moral values are all dependent on a foundation of American military power. A foundation it doesn't really pay for, but is often the first to criticize.
And this had enormous economic consequences. Think about it. With the US footing most of the security bill, European nations could suddenly redirect trillions of dollars away from their defense budgets and pour it into building their famously generous social welfare states. This chart tells the whole story. A massive slice of the pie for social programs and just a tiny sliver for the military. In Kagan's view, every euro spent on universal health care or a 6-week vacation was, in a way, subsidized by the American taxpayer. So the very structure of modern European society was shaped by this deal.
Okay, now we get to what I think is the most brilliant part of Kagan's argument. He says this isn't just about money or military budgets. A nation's power, or lack of it, fundamentally changes its psychology. It changes how you see threats, how you define morality, and the very nature of the world itself.
He uses this perfect analogy. Imagine you're walking in the woods, and you come face to face with a bear. If the only thing you're carrying is a tiny fruit knife, what's your strategy? Well, you have to believe in negotiation, right? You tell yourself, the bear probably isn't hostile. I can de-escalate this. Violence is never the answer. And why? Because you know that if it comes to a fight, you are going to lose. Your weakness literally forces you to believe in a world where reason wins.
Okay, now same exact situation, same bear, but this time you're holding a high-powered rifle. Your entire perception of the situation just flips. The bear is no longer a potential partner for a dialogue, it's a threat. It's a danger that you can and probably should neutralize before it hurts you.
It's not that you've suddenly become more aggressive, it's that you have the power to solve the problem with force, so your tolerance for risk just plummets.
Kagan puts this amazing twist on that old saying. He says Europe, because it lacks a big military hammer, has a deep psychological need to see the world as being free of nails. And what's more, it has an incentive to convince the guy with the hammer that swinging it around is just crude, unsophisticated, and, well, uncivilized. This is his explanation for that deep-seated European preference for soft power.
And this all leads to a really fascinating strategy. Kagan says Europe basically acts like the Lilliputians from Gulliver's Travels. They know they can't beat the American Gulliver in a direct contest of strength, so instead they try to tie him down with thousands and thousands of tiny little ropes, international laws, treaties, UN procedures, all in the hope of constraining the power they can't possibly match. So from this perspective, Europe's focus on international law isn't just a moral choice, it's a strategic weapon of the weak against the strong.
For a long time, this delicate balance kind of held. But after the Cold War ended, a series of major crises caused these two clashing worldviews to just smash right into each other, and it shattered the whole illusion of a unified West.
This timeline really shows how things escalated. The Kosovo War in '99 was frankly a humiliation for Europe. It proved it couldn't even handle a crisis in its own neighborhood without U.S. air power. Then came 9/11, which was this profound shock for America, proof that the jungle could reach out and strike you at home. And finally, the 2003 Iraq War became the ultimate breaking point. It was the moment these two philosophies just could not be reconciled.
And this slide really lays out just how impossible the divide over Iraq was. America, holding the rifle, saw an imminent threat that had to be dealt with preemptively. Europe, holding the fruit knife, saw a problem that could be managed and contained with weapons inspectors and UN resolutions. So, to the US, European inaction felt like a naive moral betrayal. But to Europe, American unilateralism looked like a terrifying beast that had just been let out of its cage.
So where does all this leave us? Kagan doesn't really offer an easy fix. Instead, he wraps up his whole analysis with a pretty chilling warning about the future of the West.
He basically frames Europe's entire modern project as one massive gamble. They are betting everything on the idea that the jungle has been tamed for good, that soft power and international law are now strong enough to handle real threats. And maybe the biggest bet of all, that the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a dictator or a terrorist group, but their own unrestrained American protector.
And that leads to the final haunting question Kagan leaves us with. It's one that still hangs over the transatlantic alliance today. What happens to the garden if the guard, tired of being called a barbarian while doing all the dirty work, finally decides to walk away? So there you have it. The West is basically a couple where one person wants to go to a silent retreat and the other one wants to go to a shooting range. Kagan's theory is a brutal reminder that international law is only as strong as the guy willing to enforce it. This episode was produced, as always, by the legendary FireflyHaku. I'm convinced Haku is actually the one who maintains the postmodern paradise of our production quality. They manage the audio levels with the precision of a peace treaty, while I just provide the chaotic Mars energy of sarcastic commentary. Haku is the diplomacy to my drone strike, a perfect if slightly dysfunctional union. Thanks for hanging out in my ear space today. Go out there, stay skeptical, and try not to start any geopolitical rifts over who gets the last slice of pizza. Later.